not trying to get away from it. I'm just trying to get a good spot for the. I think this might be a better spot, actually. Sure. Thanks, man. Appreciate it, though. Yeah, but if you hand one in now.
Call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Councilmember Scott,
Here.
Councilmember Mintz,
Here.
Councilmember Klink,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Buildering,
Here.
Mayor Wright.
Here.
Not approved.
Okay, public comments. This is time for the public to address the city council on issues within the jurisdiction of the city council that are not on this agenda. All comments are to be directed to the city council and shall not consist of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during their comments. There's a time limitation of 3 minutes per person. If you haven't already done so, please fill out name and address slips and give them to the city clerk. The city council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. Public comments on specific agenda items will be deferred until consideration of the item on the agenda. And I have several that has public comment. Is it public comment or you want to speak on the agenda item? Public, okay.
It was public. It's public comment, but I thought it'd be afterwards.
No, it's before.
Okay. I don't really. I'm not ready yet.
Huh?
I'm not ready yet.
Ain't gonna be no public comments afterwards.
That's fine. Skip me.
Okay.
Mayor, so on the initial motion, is that the first public comment?
No, this is public comments.
And then we're gonna have 2 times to speak?
Yeah, if you want to speak on public comment and then on the actual item.
And the actual item is only TBID, not the motion?
Correct.
Then I have to speak on the motion initially, so that will go now into public comments.
No.
It's all part of the item.
Huh?
It's about the actual motion itself.
It's all part of the TBID.
Procedurally, the motion.
It's all part of the TBID.
Okay.
So would you like me to speak now on the motion?
Okay, Chris Norris.
Same issue, sir.
Mr. John Cole.
Agenda item, sir.
Okay. Mike Usher.
Agenda item 1, sir.
Liz Myers.
Same thing, agenda item.
Eileen Leslie.
City Manager and City Attorney, after reading our city's ordinances, it is clear that there does not exist an ordinance that allows for a motion to be reconsidered after a final vote by City Council. As you know, I have a law degree, and I am quite capable of researching and interpreting ordinances. After not finding the ordinance, I spent the weekend looking for guidance and reviewed Robert's Rules of Order, 1,135 pages in its most current version, the 12th edition. It is obvious to me that if Robert's rules had been adopted by this city council, then there would also have been adopted a legitimate trigger and/or standards to make a motion to reconsider. For example, and as I interpret Robert's rules, some sort of new evidence would be such a catalyst for this type of motion. Further safeguards would be necessary to guard against the motion to reconsider to ensure that no illegalities occur, such as an exchange of money or services or other goodwill. Also, the implementation of this type of motion does not foster a feeling that our city council is making thoughtful decisions in the first place. A city council decision should not create chaos and allow for a motion to reconsider just because someone changed their mind. I'm sorry to report that many citizens of our city feel the city council is acting as a kangaroo court, a sham carried out without legal authority in which the outcome has been predetermined without regard to the evidence or the will of the people. In our city, there has never been a motion to reconsider. Establishing this type of precedent and/or by creating an ordinance for this type of motion will allow for the voices of the people to be disregarded. Therefore, at this time, I would urge each city council person to vote against this motion, as there exists no ordinance to support the motion, and so our city can move forward.
Okay, I don't have any more public comments. Oh,
I say the opposite. I actually applaud the mayor's decision to reconsider this decision. In my research, I discovered that there was quite a lot of misinformation flying around at the last meeting, and some of it just had absolutely no basis in fact. And so that was a public hearing. One has to assume that information that's being presented in a public hearing has a basis in fact. That didn't happen. So I really think that actually you're entitled to do this. I think it meets the criteria. That's all I wanted to say.
okay, no more public comments? Discussion and potential action items. Reconsideration of resolution approving annual assessment for tourism business improvement district, TBID.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Just making this item a little bigger here. The recommendation actually is the city council, not staff, reconsider whether to adopt the resolution confirming the levy of assessments for the TBID. Just by way of some background, this is just a recap of last week's council meeting on September 12th. The meeting was the annual meeting to reauthorize the TBID, the Tourism Business Improvement District. The city held the public hearing and heard some protests. The protests were voiced and accounted for at 18.95% protests, which included the VHR licensee that did not have all of her license numbers. So I included that in that 18.95%. After the protest hearing, the council had to consider the resolution to approve the annual assessment. However, the resolution failed to pass by a 2-3 vote. Following the meeting several days after, the mayor requested to reconsider the vote. And working with the city attorney, the mayor has the ability to call a special meeting under Government Code 54956, which is why we're here tonight.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add to the staff report, there's been a number of emails floating around and some letters floating around and even public comment already this evening about the legalities and some legal issues related to tonight's proceeding. So let me just kind of throw out a couple of things for you. A special meeting is specifically called out as something that can occur under the Brown Act in the Government Code. That's what this is. It was called by the mayor, which is one way a special meeting can be called. The other way it can be called is if two council members call one. Robert's Rules is simply a process to follow. It's a set of procedures to follow to have orderly meetings. And it's typical for cities, other public agencies to follow Robert's Rules. Some public agencies will adopt a resolution with modifications to Robert's Rules. But whether an agency follows Robert's Rules or their own set of rules, the law is very clear that they are not mandatory. The council does not have to follow them. It's just how we are able to conduct our meetings in an organized fashion. The Brown Act is what governs our rules, and the Brown Act gives you the authority in a properly noticed meeting to address any topic that you want that's within your purview. There are sometimes requirements that go along with specific actions, but that's not the case here. So nothing prevents you from reconsidering the resolution, and it's really the opposite of what we heard a moment ago from the audience. It's not a question of if there's something that authorizes it. It's really a question that as a general law city, you have the powers to do this as long as you follow the requirements of the Brown Act. There's also some letters floating around to the effect that, before I move on, the one proviso about being able to reconsider something is if the council had taken an action that resulted in some sort of a binding effect, then you wouldn't be able to reconsider. It'd be too late. So, for instance, if you voted to approve a contract, the contract had already been signed by the other side, and the contract went into effect, then you couldn't just reconsider. I mean, you could, but the impact would be that you'd have some liability for breach of contract damages. If you delay in a decision like this for a long period of time, then there could be actions that come out that, people rely on things that are detriment, and it could be an issue. That's not the case here, at least not as far as I'm aware. There was some information I was provided that there's a concern that on a TBID assessment resolution, that you can't make a decision after the resolution was denied for 12 months. And that's incorrect. If there is a protest vote that is successful, then the council can't take action for 12 months to try and address the assessment. But where there was not a successful protest vote, that provision wouldn't come into effect. Those are my comments. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Thank you very much, Mr. City Attorney. I really appreciate the detailed explanation of the Brown Act and Robert's Rules of Law. Would there be any liability to the city with this particular reconsideration?
None that I can see. And that's regardless of how the vote goes.
Sure. And this city does use Robert's Rules of Law, 12th edition, as a guide. Am I correct?
The city council has never formally adopted it, but as a matter of practice, since the city was, formed, you've loosely followed Robert's rules, yes. I don't know about 12th edition, but Robert's rules in general, yes.
And so, with that being said, then, it's safe to say that the city is sometimes following Robert's Rules of Law and sometimes not following Robert's Rules of Law?
I didn't say that, and in fact, I think that if you wanted to be technical about Robert's rules, we are following Robert's rules this evening. There's something called a motion to rescind. Robert's rules, by the way, is totally arcane. It wasn't even written for public agencies to follow. So if you read it, all 111 pages or whatever it is, it's really hard to read and hard to follow. It's really not a practical tool in today's world, which is why a lot of cities adopt their own rules of procedure. But anyway, within Robert's rules, there is a rule which is called a motion to rescind, which is the equivalent as a motion to amend a prior action. The concern that I've been told is floating around is that under Robert's rules, under a technical following of Robert's rules, if you want to have a motion for reconsideration, you have to make that motion at the time that the original action was taken, and that didn't occur here. Well, a motion to rescind does not require that. And literally reading right out of Robert's rules, to rescind is identical with a motion to amend. So that's what this is. I mean, call it a reconsideration, call it a motion to amend. You're looking at the resolution that happened, the vote on resolution that happened last time. You're amending that decision. So, if Robert's rules was something that was binding that actually we had to worry about following, in my view, we are following it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I just think for good practice, though, we have to be very cautious about when we're using this ability to reconsider a vote, because it does make the city council maybe look like in some people's eyes that we're indecisive. And so that would be my opinion on the situation. I would really like to see that if, what new evidence, in my opinion, has triggered this.
So whether we're following Robert's rules or not is a policy question, not a legal question, and that's up to you folks.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for staff? Okay, before I open it up to the public, I'm going to read a few things here. The first one is from Concerned Citizens Living in 29 Palms. Why against TBID and increased tourism in our city? We just received notice of this special session. These signatures represent only a small part of the city's citizenry of the same belief. Had we known that we had a voice in this issue, we would have made our opinions and voices heard loud and clear. We are against increased tourism for our town and would have expressed that to stop TBID. We're expressing our opposition to TBID now, and it's X, anonymous X, and it's 90 supposedly signatures. Some of them are marked X anonymous. That's against it. So, and then we have some emails that came in. The first one's from Karen Roseme. Let's see, Mayor and City Council members, I appreciate the chance to express my thoughts on the future of Tourism Board Improvement Program. Although I am a supporter of the TBID, I have failed to attend recent City Council meetings or make my support known until now. As a participant in this and other TBIDs, I have an understanding of the beliefs that they can provide to short-term rentals, hotels, visitors, and community members alike. As a property owner in 29 Palms, I recall the times of the city and the Chamber of Commerce, which were often met with malcontent and frustration for events and other community activities. Ultimately, the Chamber faded away and the TBID was born. Let us not forget the goals we set with the TBID and the benefits it can provide. I ask that we stay the course in support of the TBID. Sincerely, Karen Roseme. Hello, this is my written notice that I do not agree with TBID being reauthorized. I do not believe that this tax helps the lodging industry in 29 Palms. Angel Walker. Thank you for taking the time for this special session. Imagine my surprise to learn that the protest vote, which was not satisfied, led to the failure of the TBID reauthorization. As a person who closely monitors this issue and a recipient of the letter and related resolution for reauthorization, it was very clear that a written protest was to be submitted when against reauthorization. Otherwise, no action was required. I verified the process of the protest vote and conveyed it to dozens of VHR operators. I trusted the process as this has been the standard annual protocol for the past 5 years. All operators, regardless of the size of their accommodations, were also misled into thinking that reauthorization would follow should the protest vote be defeated. Since I am offered this second chance, let me be clear that I support the TBID. I am aware of the close relationship between tourism and the city's financial health. I appreciate that TBID marketing funds are kept separate from the general fund so they cannot be used for other city needs. Without TBID, I see no particular savings for the city to take on marketing in-house or required staff it would take, including the operation of our city's visitor center. Frankly, I worry that funds assuming a TOT increase would follow might be siphoned off to other pressing needs, resulting in further discontent among the community. It is time to update TBID. I feel that was identified in the August City Council meeting when the vote to approve the reauthorization was made by the City Council. We do need change, say the hoteliers, business owners, and concerned citizens gathered in the room. I kindly request that you all take into account the advantages of TBID and reconsider the reauthorization along with future strategic planning sessions and improved oversight. Susan Peplau. Mayor Lucchino, okay, right? As an owner of a VHR in 29 Palms, I am writing to express my support of TBID and request that City Council vote to keep this 1.5% tax. 29 Palms is a special place, and I've been encouraged to see the growth of tourism and investment in new business over the past several years. Sustaining that growth requires a continual reinvestment into promoting our city. I am certain that there are opportunities to improve the current TBID business strategy and marketing plan. Anything and everything can be improved. Let's not let perfect get in the way of progress. Best regards, Paul Moore. From Karen Croft. I appreciate the chance to express my thoughts on the TBID renewal and sincerely hope you will keep the TBID in place. I've already expressed my concern with the city's lack of promotion, in particular the absence of a social media presence, but overall I agree with the TBID's goals. If you can reconsider the renewal of the TBID, I'm hoping we will have new perspectives on the matter as well as more financial transparency and partnership with residents. Although I respect the stakeholders that are opposed, marketing our city is necessary for more reasons than just them. It's not like businesses can choose not to collect sales tax because they disagree with how the city spends the money they get. 29 Palms is being promoted as a destination by the tax. The vote was clearly in favor of renewing, and I sincerely hope that you do not pay attention to the vocal but minor opposition. Karen Croft. Dear Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council members, in terms of our city ordinance that was written, you cannot revisit TBID for a period of 1 year once a vote was taken. What is the hurry for a special emergency meeting? This is probably the best time to reevaluate the strength and weaknesses of the TBID. Council, with the help of Chief of Staff, gave TBID a very inexperienced, self-serving TBID board with a budget of $350,000, of which over 40% goes to payroll. We leave the TBID director with a peanut budget to compete with so many other cities that attract tourists and have a much higher TBID budget. Rather than seeing all the businesses that will benefit from tourists and start contributing to the TBID and having a bigger, better budget that can justify that huge payroll budget and still have enough funds for actual marketing, looks like we want to fulfill someone's agenda. We should also approach the restaurants and bars. There is no one in this room that attended more TBID meetings and brought to attention of the TBID board and council members that the TBID is failing us and fell on deaf ears. I bet the same will happen tonight. Please start making good decisions for the stakeholders of the community. Thank you, Vino Naharaj. Good evening. Hello, Sidney Vasquez. Please request the mayor read my message in the TBID meeting this evening. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I am surprised at this special meeting after the council voted no to TBID. This probably the first in this city's history a special vote is called. First, our city has improperly permitted 500 VHRs that does not comply with ADA law passed by President Bush in 1990. You witnessed how our city manager dodged the question when I asked, since I am permitted and get an ADA lawsuit, would the city defend me? He said he cannot give legal opinion, yet when this question came up on August 22nd, 2023 meeting, he promised to ask legal tomorrow, which was August 23rd. Why lie to us? Just be transparent. We heard an attorney say that the city and city council members will be personally sued for accountability, and the TBID resolution had many flaws in them. Please don't be the first mayor to make our city vulnerable to liabilities. Would those liabilities be defended by TBID funds or from general funds? And this is from Yashwin Nahara, or Nathra. Okay. Hi, Frank and Brianne. As much as I would love to be at the meeting, it is particularly impossible for me to make it tonight. In lieu of that, I would appreciate if my comments below are read as public comments. Respected council members for City of 29 Palms and City Manager, I would like to express my gratitude and sincere appreciation for the reconsideration for the reauthorization of the TBID for 29 Palms. As much as I wanted to be here tonight, or today, I regret not being able to be in person. I'm flying out tonight for an annual convention for Best Western. As a business owner in this city for the past 6 years, I would like to say that I'm falling in love with the natural beauty this city and the park has to offer. I've been a resident of Southern California for the past 35 years and still reside in Rancho Cucamonga. But every time I come and spend time in the desert, it draws me toward it. I say this with confidence since a lot of my guests, especially international and drive-by markets, concur with me and say that they never knew about this place, but so glad that they are here. Keeping that in mind, I will request the council to reconsider the reauthorization of the TBID. Granted, there might be things that could be done differently, and for my board and myself, I can assure you that we are open to any and all suggestions. It is very nice to see that a local citizen and business owners are getting passionate about the TBID. And as chair, I can assure each and every one of you that your voice will be heard. The board consists of stakeholders who volunteer basis help support the TBID, and doing so accumulate $500K in reserves and make decisions that are beneficial in promoting the destination. As a matter of fact, I landed at Ontario Airport yesterday from the Bay Area, and upon landing noticed a video of Visit 29 and was surprised to overhear fellow travelers wondering where this place was. This proves the point of awareness and branding by being visible in spots that are effective. In conclusion, I would sincerely request the council members to reconsider and help create a unity in the city to make it a destination of choice for Joshua Tree National Park visitors and all other desert enthusiasts. Rakesh Miyata. Dear council members, my name is Dana Bowden. I have no horse in this race. I was born and raised in 29 Palms. My grandparents on both sides own businesses in 29 Palms. My parents and my father-in-law own businesses in 29 Palms. I owned a business for 19 years in 29 Palms. To own a business means you do all the things to make money for yourself and family. I am currently the president of the 29 Palms Historical Society. The Historical Society is like a business in that we have bills and expenses to pay, and we have income and membership, donations, and fundraisers. What if we decided we just didn't want to bother with the donation income? That cash has germs after all. A large part of our funding would be gone. But what if we wear gloves and wash our hands? The city is like a business also. It voted to remove a collected funding source, not out of pocket, because a few business owners are struggling in an changing world. If my business had competition, perhaps taking some of my customers, I think of what I could do to improve my income, promote, and provide a better quality of product or service. I would not wish my competitors to fail or not have an opportunity to support themselves and their families. I'm sad that it has come to this, but changing your mind is not a bad thing. Sincerely, Dana Bowden. No, that's not all. Okay, I'm getting ready to open it up. Public comments. And now, Chris Norris, do you want to speak?
Alright, Chris Norris, live in 71 Sun Valley Drive. So it's my understanding that this program was here to support tourism across the entire city, right? It's not just an industry-specific program, correct? No answer?
That's my understanding.
Okay. But it is also my understanding that only hotels or temporary housing providers foot the bill for this citywide benefit.
No,
No.
it's hotels and VHRs.
Okay. Temporary, temporary
sorry.
housing providers.
The guests.
I think I understand what he's trying to say. He's saying that the fees that are levied on the guest are coming from VHRs and hotels.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Who are
You're correct.
temporarily staying here. Okay. Well, that impacts naturally the people who are providing those services. So it's really, even though you're saying that it's only affecting the guests, obviously we've already seen it from all the people who've come here from the hotels that it is impacting their business. And we're getting people who representing. It wasn't surprising the two people that voted in support of it, considering the industries that are represented and supported by this program. The way they voted, how they voted the way that they did. Now, if you want this program to continue, you called us back in for a reason. But it seems like there's a lot of people, other parties that are involved in this that would like to keep it happen. And if they want it to continue happening, my recommendation would be to say that they should be helping to foot the bill. That's all my comments.
Joseph Carter.
Ditto. What he said.
Liz Myers.
Good evening, City Council members. First, I want to thank you very much for taking a second look at the TBID project. I am not an owner of a hotel, nor am I an owner of a short-term rental, so I have not followed along with the discussions that have been going along for, I guess, for a long time now, until the TBID project was terminated. That got my attention. And the reason it got my attention, and should have the attention of every other citizen, is that with the city getting, I believe it was over $2 million annually from the TBID taxes, that's a revenue, and that we as citizens don't have to pay. If you look at the numbers, the revenue from those taxes has increased, with the exception of the year 2020. The revenues have gone up every single year, and that indicates that we are seeing more tourists. The TBID project is working. If there needs to be some readjustment of the oversight committee, that can be done. But please don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Thank you.
Next, we have Mike Usher.
Good evening. Excuse me. First off, I would like to thank all of you involved in getting us here to this place of dialogue and discourse this evening. The world is a much different place today than it was in 2017. In almost every aspect of life, we've had to adapt, pivot, and change to meet the ever-shifting landscape of life in the 6 years since then. Why then would we expect a structure, vision, and mission statement intended to drive the tourism of 2017 to be applicable in today's version of 29 Palms, a place that has arguably changed more during that time period than the rest of the world? It's been clear for a while that the former structure of the TBID was not working with the efficiency necessary for responsibility over such a significant budget. In my experience, this was not caused by a deficiency of the former director or even the gatekeeping mentality of a small number of the board members. The inefficiency was caused by a system that was not designed with the freedom or ability to make the adjustments necessary for anything with goals of long-term success. The former TBID was tied to a vision and mission statement from a previous era of tourism in 29 Palms and the greater Morongo Basin, without the open-mindedness or flexibility necessary to work in the best interests of our community as it sits here in 2023. I would implore the council to please not look at this as a binary issue, yes TBID or no TBID. This is too much money for our community to completely abolish on account of the activism or outspokenness of an 18%. There has to be another option, and I believe that that option has to be a system where the TOT tax remains intact, new stakeholders get together to establish a new, more transparent and community-facing system, one that prioritizes community building and community events, because building and investing in our community is how we increase tourism. The Perced meteor shower showed very directly that it doesn't matter how many tourists come to our town if our town is not ready and equipped with the infrastructure and services to meet them. The public perception and narrative surrounding 29 Palms today is night and day different than it was in 2017. Let's work together to find a way to responsibly use all the TBID and Visit 29 infrastructure that already exists, while establishing a new system that focuses on this new era of tourism in 29 Palms, while producing the type of deliverables that many of the displeased contributors feel have been lacking. Finding a way to rework this system, one that derives an overwhelming majority of its funds from visitors that will be using our resources and services, whether the tax exists or not, is critical to making 29 Palms the tourist destination in the Morongo Basin for the next 10 years and beyond. I'd love to help in any way possible.
Next, we have Mr. John Coe.
I'm going to follow him. Nice, I love that guy. Thank you for doing this evening, for reconvening. I hope you will reconsider your decision and approve it. I can't say it much better than what Michael just said and what some of the others have expressed in both the written and some of the comments that have been made and will be made. It's an important part, an important element of this community. A lot of time, effort, and money was put in it to establish this district. And the adjustments that need to be made, then let's go about making them. That'll take some work and time and energy, both from the council level into the whole district and the entire community for that matter. Thank you.
Next, we have Ash.
A very good evening to all present here today. I stand here today as a small business owner of the Harmony Motel. My support is for the TBID's progression. Having been here for almost 20 years, this is the first organization that has provided revenue in the form of an assessment fee that assists the city in their TOT growth and the greater lodging industry. Prior to the TBID, a group of innkeepers, including myself, approached the city manager, Michael Tree, in 2011 for a tourism budget. The council, with the city manager, allocated us a budget of about $20,000 from the city's general funds and agreed to pay the city marketing specialist. However, we got lucky for 2 years, and in the 7 years, our budget increased to $25,000 and then was brought back to $20,000. This restricted and minimum budget of $150,000 plus minus for 7 years brought us no revenue and gave us minimal marketing programs for the amount of money that was spent. Hence, in 2018, the TBID was created. 2017, late 2017. Today, with the TBID, within 5 years, we have a surplus of $500,000 in our reserves. In the 5 years, we had an operating budget between $120,000 to $285,000. Never had a deficit. Increased the TOTs by 60%, hence strengthening its contribution to the general fund. A few weeks ago, I heard Supervisor Don Rao on the local station Z1077 explaining that the county is not as dependent on their TOT revenue for their budgeting as would a small city such as 29 Palms. Because 29 Palms, the TOT's revenue, helps the city in many scheduled budgets for the year. The TBID further assisted in increasing 29 Palms revenue in the sales taxes, as pointed out by our city manager in his presentation on the budget meeting, and created a presence of the 29 Palms in the Joshua Tree communities, sponsored and promoted key signature events in 29 Palms, hence promoting the brand as an advocate for sustainability in our local community and the larger tourism community, created a full functioning city tourism website and advertised digitally in major airports, highways, and created a detailed marketing plan, which we never had. Thanks to the TBID, the City of 29 Palms established a formal partnership with the Bureau of Land Management that establishes the City of 29 Palms as the official gateway community to the Mojave Trails National Monument. By building awareness for the recreational opportunities the monument offers, visitors have more reason to stay longer and plan repeat visits as they understand there is more than just Joshua Tree National Park to explore visiting 29 Palms. Furthermore, the TBID established a diverse
That's
5-member board.
3 minutes, Ash. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Larry Bowden.
Our T-bid is 1.5%. On top of the 9%, that makes 10% total TOT paid per night for rentals. The T-bid brought in $300,000 paid by guests, and that money is to be used promoting 29 Palms as a destination and hopefully to eat, drink, shop, and play. Hotels and VHR rentals collect the tax from the customers in a pass-through to the city. It is not money taken from the hotel's earnings or profit. It's similar to sales tax. T-bid received $58,000 income the first year, over $300,000 in its 5th year. 2.5 years were COVID-related issues in there. The world has changed. Time to sit down and see what is working and what can be improved. That's how success happens, when people get together with ideas and solutions, not with hate, bullying, and misleading facts. I think working together is a better idea than throwing out our $300,000 funding mechanism. The visitor center, some of the things that people said in the meeting were misinformation. Someone said the visitor center doesn't have 66,000 views. They have 66,263, but it's under visit 29. It's not under the city of 29 Palms, which only has 6,500. This is a tax burden on the hotels and VHRs. TOT and T-bid are pass-through funds paid entirely by the guests that stay in the hotels. Misappropriation of funds. The city is audited by an independent accounting firm every year. The state of California auditor ranks 29 Palms, 437 out of 471 cities, with 471 being the highest. The only desert clients raised above us are Rancho Mirage, Palm Desert, and Indian Wells. We have a $14 million budget, 5.5, 5.6 goes right to the sheriffs, and it's gonna raise. City policy states we have a 50 to 55% reserve. Former council member, pretty happy they're still conservative with the public funds. On ADA, I've read the standards, spoke with the AD.gov specialist, and I'm not an expert. I still feel like it is being very misinterpreted from what I've read against VHRs, but I wish council members speaking about city business would want to help non-compliance businesses find a way to become compliant rather than to be excluded. I also hope you make public announcements if they were proven not to be out of compliance, because when something's said, it's said. In the recent vote to continue the T-bid, it was 80% yes, 20% no. Who needs to come down and do anything? If citizens are given the opportunity to vote, we assume our vote will be honored. If you wanted us to come down and raise hell, you should have told us.
Ann Cogden.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much for this opportunity to reconsider this situation. I wear two hats. One is as VHR number 1, but I'm going to talk about my second hat, which is Sky's the Limit. We do no advertising at all. Somehow, people find us. We sell out every event that we sponsor. The T-bid helps sponsor the Night Sky Festival in October, where we'll have 500 people coming to the city, and we'll have at least 20 astronomers and their assistants also. Just last Saturday night, we had a very successful event. Again, we didn't advertise it, but we were sold out. And by the way, I want to thank the girls' softball team coaches and parents for helping us out. They were great volunteers to help us out. The T-bid's doing its job. It takes a long time for these things to work out. Sure, some things could be improved. Let's sit down, let's talk about it, let's improve it. Please don't get rid of it. Thank you very much.
Next we have Mike Cogden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I think I know most of you. I have also a Sky's the Limit hat on. I'm Ann's husband, and I want to associate myself with the things that Liz Meyer said, and with which Michael said, and with Larry, which Larry Bowden said. I'm in favor of continuing the T-bid. The only thing that I would like to add is I have a PhD in political science, and I've been in business in government for about 45 years, retired now. And in my understanding, and I've done a lot of reading, obviously, in political science, is the first organization that ever decided to abolish a free income source. And it's free. We run it to us. Even Airbnbs. We run the first Airbnb, which was registered in 29 Palms. And when TBID was first approached, I wasn't in favor of it because I didn't think that we needed it. We were doing pretty well. But it turns out that I was wrong, and it's the last thing that I would want to abolish right now. It's doing a great job, and we never see the money. It goes straight from Airbnb to the city of 29 Palms, TBID. And I assume that it's the same with the hotels. So to complain that it's a cost or a burden on us is an absurd complaint. It's pass-through. So don't believe the people who say, oh, it's so onerous. It's not onerous. It's just somebody else's money which we're able to use to promote ourselves. So let's continue to support it, okay?
Next, we have Eileen Leslie.
So I come in with all my charts. We've been to a lot of meetings. It's nice to see so many new faces at this meeting. A lot of pioneers, it looks like. I appreciate that, and I say that with deep respect. So we're talking about 1.5, it's a learning thing tonight. We all know this, we've all talked about it. I'm shocked. We know 1.5% is $1.50 on $100. It's not onerous. We've gone over this and over this. Councilman Mintz, you specifically were wondering why so many people are already showing up recently to the meetings. It's because they're unhappy. They're not getting the support of the tourism dollar. We don't earn the money. We are a pass-through, but we certainly facilitate it. And I think the reason why you're seeing that increased attention and attendance is for that reason. So, I can't really add anything more to this argument. We've heard it so many times. It's not a problem. $1.50, $100. We've lowered our rates because that's what the economy is demanding right now. Tourism should have been designed and was actually initially designed in TBID to support tourism in our city so that we could make more sales tax, so that we could have more people enjoy our city, so we weren't so selfish with it maybe. It's not our park, it's a beautiful national park. I've talked about the stars in the park before. It's redundant at this point. I think that for me at this point, it's really about the waste of spending. I mean, we've talked about that as well. Let's just review. Over 40% of the money that is coming in is being used for salaries. And I've said it over and over again, then you need to address that. Getting rid of one person is not what I'm talking about. We're talking about an experienced person that can actually show you demonstrable results that have been produced as a result of the TBID board. We've asked over and over again. There's been no KPIs, there's no ROIs. There's these charts to talk, there's a mission statement, but there's nothing. We're outsourcing even more money over the 40%. So it's fantastic we're making the money. I'm not making the argument we don't want to pay the 1.5%. I'm making the argument that we don't want to waste money. And as I said many times, the world is not going to end if TBID stops for just a moment. We go ahead and have the strategic plan. We can come back and reinstate it at any time. It's not a big deal. The decision was heard. By the way, I want to address the 18.8%. I don't think that's still a correct calculation. I did put a Freedom of Information request in to get those numbers because I believe some of the petitioning hotels, I believe there were 5 of the major hotels were not included in that, and I haven't received that yet. I'm looking forward to those numbers. Moving forward, sure, let's talk about it. But at this point, we have talked about this ad nauseum. And I don't want to come to any more meetings with you guys. I like you, but it's a Monday. I'm used to seeing you on Tuesdays. So I would ask you to let's stay with the decision from last week. Thank you very much.
Patricia Knight.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I stand before you as a community member deeply invested in the growth of our local economy and a volunteer TBID board member. Today, I wish to highlight the positive strides made by the TBID and potential repercussions of not reauthorizing it. This year, I represented six homeowners with 7 vacation rentals in our city. The TBID has been successfully enhancing traffic to my direct booking website with 64 referrals so far this year and a 10% rise in direct bookings compared to last year. This showcases the TBID's effectiveness in promoting 29 Palms as a prime destination, aligning with the mission to foster growth in travel and tourism in the area. At the previous City Council meeting on August 22nd, I underscored our trailblazing role in tourism within the Morongo Basin, a distinction made possible by the TBID. This initiative serves as a badge of honor and tangible representation of our dedication to fostering community prosperity. I encourage us to not only sustain this effort, but to amplify it, rallying together to further its vision and reach. Now I'd like to share some critical insights from case studies that were part of the City of Ontario's Tourism Marketing Report prepared by Civitas, a firm we were collaborating with conversion and further improvements to the TBID before it was halted by the city manager and the council. The annual report from 2021 had studies that provided a glimpse into potential setbacks communities can face when tourism marketing initiatives are reduced or halted. Prior to 1993, the Colorado Tourism Board had a $12 million marketing budget funded by a less than 2% tax on most tourism. Within 2 years of repealing its tourism funding in 1993, Colorado lost 30% of its U.S. visitor marketer share, which translated into an equivalent of over $1.4 billion annually in lost revenues. By the late 1990s, this revenue had escalated to a loss of $2.4 billion a year. Similarly, San Diego experienced a decline in market share when tourism marketing was curtailed in 2023. The San Diego Tourism Marketing District faced funding freezes due to litigation, forcing significant cutbacks in advertising campaigns and staff layoffs. This adversely affected the hotel industry, with room demand leveling off and occupancy rates increasing more slowly than in competing markets. These case studies illustrate the potential challenges and setbacks we might encounter if the TBID is not reauthorized. In conclusion, I ask the Council to consider the proven benefits of TBIDs and the potential adverse effects of discontinuing it. Together, we can foster a thriving tourism sector that benefits our local businesses and community at large. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Next, I have Anna Stump.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. I am the chair of the Public Arts Advisory Committee of 29 Palms, and I am here on behalf of the PAC, and we would like, as a committee, to respectfully request that you reconsider dissolving the TBID. We see the TBID and the PAC working together to promote arts and culture and tourism. Arts and culture definitely needs tourism, but we think tourism needs arts and culture. And we have made a presentation recently to the TBID to enhance possibly our relationship together. We already have a very lovely working relationship for many, many years. And I know Ann Congdon helped set this up, which is that we have a gallery inside of the visitor center, and this serves the citizens of 29 Palms, the artists who have shown their work there and sold their work there, and the tourists love it. We had wonderful shows set up. We were going to set up a show in the beginning of October with the Historical Society of 29 Palms to have a little mini retrospective of the weed show, because the weed show is such a brief period. We thought tourists would love to see more of the weed show for the 3 months that we would have it up. After that, we were going to be showing the children, Groundworks Arts, and then showcasing Workshop 29 in late spring of next year. So we would respectfully request that you decide to keep the TBID in whatever form, but we think that the TBID and arts and culture are really important for the benefit of our local people. It helps us all. Thank you.
Next, I have Cindy Bernard.
Hi again. Thanks again for having this special session. As I said on August 22nd, if it's possible to reauthorize for 3 to 6 months, please do that. In essence, I agree with Mike Usher, Larry Bowden, Danny, surprisingly, and others who recommend a reauthorization and a rethink. Don't blame the funding mechanism for the board hoarding $500,000. Blame the board. If you want public trust in the TBID, I think you're going to need to make some changes to the board. I'm just being honest with you. People are not happy. Then have a public rethink of the TBID from the ground up. It's truly upsetting to think about the lack of vision exhibited by the TBID board. Even if some of the money was accumulated during COVID, they could have established a granting program for events as things improved instead of the slapdash way that proposals are handled now. Imagine they had the money, they could have put $100,000 out there for people to do things. Nobody had the vision to think to do that. I don't get it. Even when they got a good proposal, they turned it down or they underfunded it because they don't understand event production costs. They think that it's too expensive. Once out of COVID, the TBID board could have hired a professional to assess their marketing and research effectiveness so there would be data to support the director's claims. Why not do that? I don't understand why they haven't done that. I mean, they've hung themselves in this respect. There's no data. The TBID levy is a good mechanism for supporting marketing and events and someday perhaps arts and culture, and all of those things both support our community and support tourism. After all, if you don't give tourists something to do when they're here, they're not going to hang out here. There's a room of angry people due to the hubris of the current board. They brought this upon themselves by not working with the community, not collecting data to verify their figures, and hoarding $500,000. If you reauthorize, and you should, please commit to real change, and that starts with a public strategic planning session, asking long-serving board members to resign so we can expand the breadth of experience and knowledge on the board, and please, please have better oversight. And I'm happy to help out if needed. Thank you.
Next, we have Judy Pruitt.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. The only thing I have to say is I think that the TBID should be dissolved and restructured. I really think it's time to restructure the entire program to suit 2023 needs. And everything else I said at Tuesday's meeting, I'm not going to repeat that, but I just again think restructuring would be the best choice. Thank you.
Next, I have Dawn Benton.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and the audience. I'm impressed. More and more people are showing up to your meetings. You're going to have to expand the meeting room. I don't own a hotel, a motel, or an STR. I just want to make that perfectly clear. You know how rumors are in this city. I come from the business side of things. Successful businesses reorganize occasionally. Some of them every 6 months, some once a year, some of them every 5 years. They examine their strengths and their weaknesses. I think that the TBID group has strengths, and it also has weaknesses. I know if I would have been on there during COVID, I'd have been planning on coming out with a banner year of all kinds of things to do. Because what else you got to do? You can Zoom. All the board members can Zoom, stay at home, don't catch it from everybody else. I definitely think you should, or I would encourage you to reconsider your vote and to push a reorganization of the TBID group. Thank you.
Next, we have Scott Clinkscale.
Hello, everyone. I'm off the clock, I promise. I am here to speak in favor of TBID, but most importantly, Director of Marketing Brianne Dusastre. As someone who worked with Brianne at the 29 Palms Visitor Center for a year and a half part-time, I saw firsthand just how much work she puts into everything she does to market our community. But let's get one thing straight first. VHR ADA compliance has nothing to do with the TBID. VHRs are considered a business and in order to operate must get a business license through the city. TBID is not involved in this process. The departments involved in this process are code enforcement, planning, building and safety, and business licenses. In my opinion, those concerned about VHRs being ADA compliant should speak with those departments if they are concerned about this topic. Brianne has done an amazing job, not only marketing 29 Palms, but also running the 29 Palms Visitor Center as the sole full-time employee. Maybe instead of community members chastising her at every meeting, they should stop and consider why she proposed bringing on a full-time marketing assistant. She can't be a tourism department of one who also cleans the visitor center. Without Brianne and TBID, the city would most likely close the 29 Palms Visitor Center, which is the only place tourists and locals can get information on where to eat, shop, stay, and find things to do. Not only that, but the PAC wouldn't have a space for their quarterly art gallery. Local artisans wouldn't have a place to sell their locally made goods in the gift shop. Not to mention, without Brianne and TBID, you lose visit29.org. Their website, which I have firsthand knowledge about in both running and tracking data, is your one place to find lodging, restaurants, shops, attractions, and so much more. Plus, it is home to the only full community events calendar in the city. How else are people supposed to find out about gallery exhibitions, art classes, concerts, farmers markets, special events, and so much more? Go to each individual site. It's the only place they can go to that shows everything going on in 29 Palms. Brianne is one of the hardest working people I know and totally invested in this community and has been for so long. She has shown not only to me but everyone who walks into that building to learn about 29 Palms that she loves this community and has a passion for sharing what makes 29 Palms the special place it is. It shouldn't matter if she lives in 29 Palms or not. There are other city employees who don't live in 29 Palms, and I'm sure there are some stakeholders who don't either. As someone who has been here his whole life and didn't just move here a few years ago, I have seen how much our city has grown. And I know we are going through growing pains. It's a matter of life. Change happens. There's an old saying that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, just remember, empty wagons make the most noise. Thank you.
Mary Jane Bingy.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. At the last meeting, I was out of town. Didn't realize that there was going to be a no vote with the small amount of negative percentage. I was shocked when I heard that. Much to my complete disappointment on the vote, I called the city hall while I was at the airport to ask to speak to 3 councilmen that voted no and asked if they would call me. I had one question. What is your plan? I turned my call and Councilman Bill Duran did not. I did not like the answers I got from the 2, and therefore I am asking you to vote in favor of keeping TBID. Do a strategic planning. Give it a chance. Give TBID a chance. And I happen to be with Eileen. We need to cut the costs, which can be discussed at a planning commission, not commission, but at a planning meeting. There's work to be done, but we need TBID. We need something to advertise our community, our city. We don't have a Chamber of Commerce. Why do we want to shut down our only avenue to the outside world, basically? So I'm in favor, and I ask you to please also be in favor of keeping TBID. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any more green slips. Bring it back to council. Any more comments?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, guys. Thank you for everyone who spoke today. It's much appreciated. I think that there was a lot of insightful things and comments that people brought, and I'm certainly taking it into consideration. I just want to clarify my stance on it because there might be some misinformation out there regarding it. I am not against the T-bid per se. I do think that money was hoarded for a long time, and that money could have been used to help with our tourism. I think that restructuring was important, but when I say restructuring, I'm thinking that restructuring is only in order to really restructure and bring in like other businesses. You have to let this one die, so you can bring back another T-bid where you can bring in bars, you can bring in restaurants, because we're only bringing in about $350,000 a year in this T-bid. And lots of cities in California have a T-bid. They're bringing in millions of dollars in their T-bid, and that's because they have the bars and the restaurants. And I also wanted the opportunity for certain hotels who didn't want to be a part of it to be able to opt out. I just believe in choice. But I definitely understand your concerns. I appreciate it, and I'm definitely taking it into consideration. The last thing that I want to say is that while I appreciate the mayor bringing this special meeting to the front, I still have mixed feelings about that process, and so I just have to stick with that part. But in terms of hearing you guys, and I certainly heard you. You made some valid points, and I'm a person of fairness.
Well, I think I've said the last 3 or 4 meetings I've spoke my views on the T-bid. I do want to see when we make this motion that it's part of it is to move forward with the strategic planning, because that was what we talked about earlier. So I really don't have much to add. I'm glad people showed up today. I'm glad more people showed up and gave us their opinions, and that some of the things that were said have been false and or strung out to where it could be misleading. So I'm glad some of that was straightened out tonight. So that's all I really have to say, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, is it an option though, Mr. City Manager, Mr. City Attorney, where we can somehow figure out a way to allow certain businesses to opt out of this T-bid? Is there a way that if we reauthorize it today, we can let those businesses opt out?
It's not something we can do today, but it's certainly something we can look at and bring something back for the council to consider.
What about on the flip side? Is it something that we can do to maybe bring in some of the other businesses? As people have pointed out, it's the consumer that pays the cost. It's the traveler that pays the cost, and the businesses collect it. However, can we bring in other businesses that are involved in the tourism industry?
So it's a little complicated because the way the TBID tax is structured, it's based on hotel nights. So, you know, the whole structure is based on percentage of the rate you pay for the room. There are business improvement districts that are not tourist business improvement districts. So, you know, any business could be part of it. And it's certainly something that we can look at and strategize on and figure out if there's a way to have a larger segment of the community get involved and figure out how you would do the assessment in a way that, you know, a bar doesn't have, you know, a rack rate every night, so you can't have a percentage of the rack rate as the tax, but or as the assessment. But, you know, it's certainly something, if there's an interest from the council, that we could look into to figure out how to you know, expand it. It's the kind of a thing that I think that perhaps even a study session might be a good idea, where we could bring in Civitas, who, I mean, they're really kind of the leading experts in putting together business improvement districts, and you can bounce around ideas of things you want to do, and they can tell you, you know, what's within the realm of possibility and what's not. So if that's something the council's interested in, just, you know, let staff know and we work on that.
I guess the final thing that I just want to know is, before we make another vote on this issue, what would that strategic planning look like? Because that's never really been made clear. And I think that if we can actually answer that question, maybe that'll help to bring others on board.
Sure, yeah. So what I've been doing over the last month is looking for a facilitator, right? A facilitator outside of myself who can bring the electeds, the TBID board and all the stakeholders together to kind of go through that session, similar to how the council does on our priorities, to figure out what those priorities of our community are. Things like that have been talked about, events, the visitor center, another thing, and et cetera. So all those things will be discussed, prioritized, then kind of matched up to the budget, because that's a key. We could always have things of grandeur, but if it doesn't fit in the budget, then it's not going to work, right? So we've got to have that strategic plan that also matches up to the budget. And that session, which is, the time is slided a little bit, because we were originally going to do it in the beginning of October, but it looks like it's going to be more towards the end of October, because I want to give it 30 days to at least get noticing out so people know that it's coming. Make sure calendars are always a challenging thing, especially towards the end of this year. But to get the stakeholders together, that one-day session, probably 4 or 5 hours, again, very similar to what the council does, but very narrow to just tourism, and to try to see what those, the goals and objectives are.
Would that also include, looking at the board and all that?
It can be, looking at makeup of the board, right? That could be one of the things that is, discussed to try to get more, community expertise in there. By way of example, in our, when we first set this up, we had the Greater Palm Springs talking to us a lot about how they set up. Very similar. They started off small, then kind of grew, but one of the things they have is subcommittees, right, of experts, right? Their hoteliers sit on it, but they have, subcommittees that, I know they mentioned to us, like the National Park can be on there, maybe some restaurant tours can be on there. So that is obviously something that we can do subcommittee, but your ordinance ultimately sets the tone of who, can and should be on those boards. So that.
No, I meant, talking about it in strategic planning.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing I want to add, though, about Greater Palm Springs is that it's multiple cities.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually have an executive committee of council members and Riverside County Board Supervisors that sit on it as well. I think I'm mentioning that just to say that a lot of TBIDs are not just really one city. A lot of TBIDs are a region or a county, and that's why they're bringing in a lot more money than we are. We're only bringing in $350,000, and a lot of it goes to administration. And so that's why I want to figure out a ways, if we're going to do the TBID, how do we increase the revenue so that the staff that work on TBID have the resources to be able to do what they need to do.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, and I know, Ash is in the audience, I think maybe Vicky Waite's in the audience. That's originally was kind of discussed as a Morongo Basin TBID, but there wasn't that, collective mindset, so what we did is we launched it ourselves. I think it's a model for the Morongo Basin. I know the TBID board has talked a little bit about maybe Wonder Valley, Desert Heights, maybe, expanding it. Which ultimately, at the end of the day, more revenue comes in, more services we could provide.
Thank you.
All right, so first I want to thank everybody for coming. Really appreciate it. And yes, I was the one that called for this special meeting because I felt like it was needed, because America is a democracy, and plain and simple, and so I felt like I forgot that at the last meeting, and now I remember it. So with that, I want to make a motion that we approve this resolution.
I'll second. What is it, Matt? 24.
Okay. Roll call.
Councilmember Scott?
Aye.
Councilmember Mintz?
Aye.
Councilmember Klink?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Buildering? Mr. Mayor, congratulations on being brave and doing what you did. Standing in front of everyone and saying, "Let's reduce again," taking back in. It took a lot of courage, and I commend you for that. Aye.
Mayor Wright.
Aye.
Approved 5-0.
Frank, now you gotta fix it.
Adjourn.
Did you guys watch?
Meeting's adjourned.
You guys watch the box of kitties thing?
I did not, oh, yeah, I did actually.
It's pretty good. The box of kitties thing, the videos, it's pretty good. It's